Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Millionaire Formula. I hope you're all having a great day wherever you are in this great, great world. If you zoom out to the 1 week chart, you can clearly see all that sideways action. XRP has been stuck in. We went sideways, moved up a little bit, then started to break down. Now, here's the key thing. You can see almost the exact same setup on Bitcoin. Bitcoin went sideways, pushed up slightly, broke down, and now it's starting to move back up again. Bitcoin is already back above $91,000. Because XRP is still heavily following Bitcoin, most likely we will see XRP start to move upward again, along with Bitcoin from where we are right now. That's just how this market works at this stage of the cycle. The real question everyone keeps asking is whether we're going to fall under $2 again. And honestly, it all comes down to what happens when the market opens. Mondays are notorious in crypto. If Bitcoin is sitting above 90K, what usually happens? They dump the price of Bitcoin early. Long positions get liquidated, then short positions get liquidated, and then like clockwork, the price starts to rebound again. So if we do see a dip or a dump in Bitcoin, there's definitely a chance XRP could dip below $2 again as well. That's just the reality of how closely these markets are connected right now. But let me be very clear about one thing. If XRP goes below $2 again, you do not panic. You either do nothing or you buy the dip. That's it. Because every single time we've seen a dump in this market throughout this cycle, what happens next? The price rebounds. This has been happening week after week after week. Now, while all of this is going on in the market, this is also where positioning becomes extremely important. This is where the smart money separates itself from emotional retail traders. And this is exactly why I created the 100X Club. The 100X Club is designed for people who want to be early, not late. Inside, you get exclusive weekly stock alerts for potential 100x stocks, crypto insider alerts, and a millionaire mindset framework focused on building real generational wealth. We talk about top 1% positioning strategies, the 100 stock formula, and how to truly 100x your wealth over time. You'll find it in the pinned comment. Now let's get back to XRP. There was a post floating around from Grok that really caught a lot of attention. According to the Cycle Psychology chart, XRP is currently sitting in the disbelief phase, and the next phase would be Euphoria. That's where things get interesting. But some people are asking, are we going to see one major crash before we get to Euphoria? There are definitely people out there predicting a massive shakeout before the real move begins. Personally, I don't think we need it. I think we already had our major shakeout. If you remember back to October, XRP had that huge wick down. That, in my opinion, was the final shakeout. The one that clears out weak hands before things go parabolic. Historically, markets don't always give you multiple chances. Sometimes the move just starts. And that's what people need to understand. Breakouts don't come with warnings. Everyone is sitting around waiting for the perfect catalyst, the perfect headline, the perfect announcement. But markets don't work that way. XRP could literally start running right now. Once that breakout begins, things are going to move extremely fast. We'll be in price discovery before people even realize what's happening. By the time most retail traders try to hit the buy button, the price will already be significantly higher. That's just how explosive moves happen in crypto. Now let's talk about one of the most controversial predictions floating around. There's been a claim circulating that Elon Musk's Grok AI has set an XRP price target for January 31st, 2026, predicting XRP could reach just below 365. According to the model, there's about a 35% probability of that specific scenario playing out. Here's how I look at that. If there's a 35% chance XRP reaches that level, that means there's a 65% chance it goes even higher. And when XRP runs, it doesn't move slowly. It moves violently. Liquidity dries up fast. Supply gets locked and price gaps start forming. People laugh at these numbers because they anchor themselves to today's price. But they forget how crypto cycles work. They forget what happens when regulatory clarity hits, when liquidity floods back into the market, and when institutions finally feel safe going align. Another headline making the rounds is about the biggest crash of 2026 coming next. And here's the thing most people don't understand. Long-term holders and altcoin holders should actually be happy about that. Why? Because massive crashes usually come after massive runs. First comes expansion, then comes excess, then comes contraction. If people are already talking about the crash, that tells you where we are in the cycle. And when you look at the Bitcoin dominance chart, it starts to tell a very interesting story. Bitcoin dominance typically peaks before altcoins go on their biggest runs. When dominance starts to roll over, that's when capital rotates into assets like XRP. So, no, I'm not worried about short-term dips. I'm not worried about volatility. Volatility is the price you pay for exponential gains. If XRP dips below $2 again, it's not the end of the world. It's not bearish. It's not a failure. It's just another opportunity in a cycle that's still very much alive. And this is really what everybody is waiting for right now. Bitcoin dominance falling off a cliff. You can see it clearly if you look back at previous cycles. Once dominance peaks and starts to roll over hard, that's when capital rotates. That's when altcoins finally get their moment. And I personally believe we're getting very close to that point again. Right now, there is massive hype being pushed around Bitcoin. Everywhere you look, it's Bitcoin this, Bitcoin that. Price targets getting higher by the day. Media outlets talking about how Bitcoin is going to infinity, the 4-year cycle is dead, and pullbacks are a thing of the past. And you have to ask yourself why now? Because retail investors are being pulled in. That's what this is really about. Retail liquidity, exit liquidity. That's how markets work. Smart money positions early, price moves up, hype increases, retail piles in late, and then distribution begins. That's not emotion, that's structure. And this lines up with what Mark Yusko has been saying. He believes 2026 is going to be the peak year. Now, does that mean December 2026, October 2026? Nobody knows exactly, but historically, September is the worst month in markets and October is the second worst. That's when things start to feel uncomfortable. Personally, I do think we're in a bubble. I do believe Bitcoin will peak in 2026. Most likely, we'll see one last major move up to a new all-time high, and then we're going to see a hard crash. And no, I don't believe we're in a Bitcoin supercycle. That's where I differ from a lot of the narratives being pushed right now. You've probably heard it everywhere. The world's highest IQ holder says XRP is in a supercycle. CZ says supercycle. Tom Lee says supercycle. Raoul Paul says 5-year cycle. The message is always the same. Everything is a super cycle. Everyone's about to get rich overnight. Just buy now and never sell. And that should immediately raise red flags because what they're really telling you is to buy Bitcoin now at elevated prices under the belief that the 4-year cycle is dead and Bitcoin will go up forever with no meaningful pullbacks. I don't buy that narrative at all. I think it's dangerous and I think it's misleading. What I believe is going to happen is this. Bitcoin tops out. Bitcoin crashes hard. And that's when we finally get a real alt season. What's different this time, though, and this is critical, is utility. Utility is here now in a way it never was before. And utility can actually drive price, not just speculation. That's the key difference between past cycles and what's coming next. Do I think XRP is in a super cycle? Probably not. I don't think the term super cycle even applies the way people are using it. What I do think XRP is entering is a utility-driven cycle. And the truth is, nobody really knows how long that lasts, but you don't need to guess when you look at what's coming. The next massive wave in crypto is tokenization, real-world assets moving on-chain, trillions of dollars in assets being tokenized. This isn't hype. This is infrastructure. And this is going to ramp up throughout 2025 and 2026. So here's the real question people should be asking. How does XRP crash the same way it did in past cycles if trillions of dollars are moving onto the XRP ledger? If XRP is being used as a bridge asset to move tokenized assets from point A to point B, if cross-border payments continue to scale globally, if transaction volume on the XRP ledger keeps increasing, if ETFs continue pulling in capital, then we're not talking about a purely speculative asset anymore. We're talking about an asset with real demand tied to real usage. That doesn't mean XRP can't pull back. Everything pulls back, but it does mean the structure underneath the price is very different this time. And while I believe Bitcoin will crash hard after it hits a new all-time high, I don't believe XRP will follow the same script as past cycles. I think XRP decouples partially because of utility. Now let's talk about something that's flying under the radar, but is extremely important. XRP futures activity. XRP futures traders are now helping sustain the price. Billions of XRP are being locked up on exchanges. This matters more than most people realize. According to CoinList data, XRP has seen a significant rise in open interest over the last 24 hours. Open interest has surged to over $4 billion with approximately $1.93 billion XRP committed to the futures market across multiple exchanges. That tells you one thing very clearly. People are positioning now. This isn't retail panic buying tops. This is strategic positioning ahead of a move. When open interest rises alongside price stability or gradual increases, it suggests traders are building exposure, not exiting. And again, this lines up perfectly with the broader picture. Bitcoin dominance is still high, but cracks are forming. Once dominance starts to roll over decisively, capital will rotate. It always does. The only difference this time is that some altcoins, especially utility-driven ones, have actual fundamentals backing them. That's why I'm not buying into the idea that everything is going to crash exactly the same way it always has. Markets evolve, cycles rhyme, but they don't repeat perfectly. Bitcoin will still do what Bitcoin does: hype, peak, crash. But assets like XRP are entering a different phase, one tied less to pure speculation and more to infrastructure, settlement, and liquidity. And that's why you're seeing people quietly position now, while sentiment is still mixed, while fear is still present, and while most people are distracted by Bitcoin headlines. This is how it always works. By the time everyone agrees, the move is already over. People waiting for perfect clarity usually end up buying late. People waiting for confirmation usually miss the early stages. And people who panic on dips usually hand their assets to someone who understands cycles better. The big picture hasn't changed. Volatility hasn't changed. Human behavior hasn't changed. What has changed is utility. And that's the wild card this cycle. Bitcoin dominance falling is the signal. Tokenization is the catalyst. Utility is the driver. And positioning is already happening. The people paying attention now won't need hype later. Everybody knows it's coming. You can feel it. You can see it. The chart is literally screaming that a breakout is on the way. The structure is there. The pressure is building and momentum is quietly stacking up. The only thing still holding us back right now is one simple fact. We're still following Bitcoin. Once Bitcoin finally stops getting dumped every Monday or Friday, once they stop suppressing the price and just let it run, that will be the moment we've all been waiting for. And I want to be very clear here. It's still too early to say that moment has already arrived. I see people online saying the biggest run in history just started 5 minutes ago. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. I honestly don't think we know yet. One thing I do know is that we're still in uncertain times when it comes to crypto. This market is still extremely unpredictable, still emotional, still driven by macro factors and liquidity games. Right now, we're in that uncomfortable phase where nothing feels clear. And that's usually exactly where massive moves are born. There's an article making the rounds where an analyst outlines the bull case for XRP and explains why the price could hit new all-time highs sooner than most people expect. One of the main things they focus on is the DXY, the US dollar index. And if you've been following me for a long time, you already know I've always paid close attention to the DXY. I've said it many times. The DXY often tells you what's coming next for crypto. If you look at the DXY right now on the 5-day chart, you can see it's starting to roll over. It's pulling downward, and a lot of people are expecting that move to continue. If it does, history gives us a pretty clear roadmap. Go back to 2021. The DXY rolled over, weakened, and shortly after that, crypto went parabolic. Go back even further to 2017, same thing. The DXY pulled down, liquidity flowed into risk assets, and that's when XRP ran into its all-time high. So the question isn't whether the DXY matters. The question is, are we at that moment right now? And the honest answer is it's still too soon to say. It all comes down to where the DXY goes from here. If it continues to fall, that opens the door. If it stalls or reverses, then we wait longer. This is the part of the journey that most people don't talk about. One day in the future, people are going to look at you and say, wow, you got so lucky investing in crypto. And they'll never understand what it actually took. They won't understand the red days. They won't understand the frustration. They won't understand the delays, the sideways action, the constant waiting. They won't understand what it feels like to sit through weeks and months of nothing happening. Just look at the 7-day chart on XRP. We've gone sideways for long stretches before. Anyone who's held XRP for years knows this pain very well. I've lived through it over and over again. This is not financial advice. I held through this move to get to this level. Then it came back down. I held through that to get to the next move. And now we're here again. This is the pattern. This is the cycle. And hopefully the next push up is the one that truly changes lives. When you zoom out, you can actually see it. I still believe that where we are right now mirrors that earlier accumulation phase almost perfectly. To me, it looks like this moment right here is lining up with that moment back then, the calm before the real expansion. If that's how this plays out, we're not talking about small numbers anymore. We're talking about 50 plus XRP, very possibly 100 plus XRP. And I know that sounds crazy to some people, but once a breakout actually begins, we'll have much more clarity on just how high price can go. Right now, even the most conservative voices are still calling for $13 to $15 XRP. Others are sticking to the $27 level. I personally think we go higher than that, and here's why. First, you have ETF inflows. ETFs remove XRP from circulation. Less supply, same or increasing demand that matters. Second, you have tokenization. If tokenization really starts ramping up before the breakout begins, that could act as fuel on top of an already lit fire. Then there's regulation. Is the Clarity Act going to get done this week? Nobody knows. But if it does, that would be incredibly bullish, not just for XRP, but for all of crypto. Regulatory clarity removes uncertainty, and markets love certainty. That could very easily be the spark that sets this entire run in motion. Maybe that's the catalyst everyone's been waiting for. Maybe it's something else, or maybe there is no single catalyst at all, and the move just starts because conditions finally line up. What happens this morning is going to tell us a lot. If Bitcoin gets dumped again, don't get frustrated. You already know how this game works. You don't panic. You don't sell your XRP out of emotion. You sit back, you stay patient, and you wait because you know what's coming. Every single shakeout in this cycle has eventually led to higher prices. Every dump has been followed by a rebound, and nothing about the bigger picture has changed. And before I wrap this up, I want to quickly mention something important. If you're serious about positioning yourself early, not just in crypto, but across opportunities that can truly change your financial future, I created the 100X Club for exactly that reason. Inside, you get exclusive weekly stock alerts for potential 100X stocks, crypto insider alerts, top 1% positioning strategies, and a millionaire mindset built around generational wealth. It's simple, focused, and designed for people who want to move ahead of the crowd.